Just a casual Sunday for the MAGA Republicans, attacking Social Security, attacking Ukraine. MAGA Republican Secretary of State Marco Rubio had the audacity to finger wave at President Zelensky and saying, "How dare President Zelensky, Ukraine, explain what's going on in Ukraine to Donald Trump." Let me break down what's going on. You had the Speaker of the House, MAGA Mike Johnson, go on Meet the Press, and he said, "Look, everybody, Elon Musk is putting his algorithms through the Social Security system. Man, isn't this what we all wanted? His algorithms are crawling through your Social Security." Here, play this clip.
So you say there won't be any cuts to entitlements, but on Friday, Elon Musk, who President Trump has, of course, put in charge of making cuts all across the government, called Social Security, quote, "the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time." Mr. Speaker, is that a sign that Social Security is Elon Musk's next target?
No, well, I've met with Elon about this multiple times. We meet late into the night in his office, and we've looked at that. What he's finding with his algorithms crawling through the data of Social Security system is enormous amounts of fraud, waste, and abuse.
So it's a target.
And we need
it is
to target
a target.
that. The American people want us to. No, Kristen, don't put words in my mouth. What I am saying is we have a moral responsibility to ensure that those programs are conducted in a way that does not allow for this massive fraud and abuse. And that's what he is finding. He's finding.
By the way, one of the things that we learned as well is that Trump and Doge are expected to cut thousands and thousands of jobs from the Social Security Administration, making it very difficult for Social Security checks to be delivered. Let's take a look at over here. You have Marco Rubio attacking President Zelensky for Ukraine-splaining what's happening in Ukraine to Donald Trump. Let's play this clip.
Can we get them to a table to negotiate? That's our goal. Don't do anything to disrupt that. And that's what Zelensky did, unfortunately, is he found every opportunity to try to Ukraine-splain on every issue. Then he confronts the vice president. When the vice president says the goal here is diplomacy, he immediately jumps in and challenges the vice president. Well, what kind of diplomacy? So we all understand, okay, that Putin is not going to be an easy negotiator.
Next, you have the National Security Advisor, Mike Walls, to Donald Trump. And here he said, look, the real big issue here is that Zelensky's body language was off. How rude was Zelensky? He was crossing his arms. Here, play this clip.
You know, for us, kind of, talking about the details and demands of security guarantees before, as President Trump said, look, I don't know that we can get both sides to the table at this point. And, you can't kind of trash the other side going, litigating through the history of this conflict if we're going to bring both sides to the table. And further coming to the Oval Office, with the body language, the shaking of head, the kind of the arms crossed, we found it incredibly disrespectful. We were ready to sign that deal. I want to address directly that this was some type of ambush is absolutely false. We had negotiated the minerals deal in the weeks prior. It was difficult, but it was done and finalized and ready to be signed in the East Room.
So since you've been,
as Sean Casten explains, doing diplomacy from a position of strength requires conveying red lines with kindness. As a Romanian diplomat once told me, the U.S. is, quote, the nicest bully in the world, and that weaker countries only bully. The incompetence of the Trump team is sending a signal that we are weak. And the behavior you saw there from Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor, is peak Trump weakness. Going back to MAGA Mike Johnson on Meet the Press here, he's asked a question about, again, one of the things we're hearing in terms of the Social Security Administration's internal watchdog, they're finding that less than 1% of benefit payments were improper. To which Mike Johnson said, I don't believe data. I don't believe that data. Here, play this clip.
It's worth noting the Social Security Administration's internal watchdog found that less than 1% of benefit payments were improper. I do want to get to my final question, though, which is about the shutdown.
Don't believe it. Hey, don't believe it.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Now, one of the important things that I think you need to realize is that the way Doge and Trump weaponize what they consider to be fraud, it's the pretext, it's the subterfuge to attack things that aren't actually fraudulent, but to attack things and take away people's benefits like Medicaid, Social Security, Medicare, veterans benefits, to steal the money essentially and to shift it and to give it to the billionaires and the oligarchs in the form of $4.5 trillion in tax cuts, which is what's ultimately in this horrendous budget. I mean, here's a question that you should ask yourself sometimes. Okay, so if Elon Musk and Trump are saying there is all of this fraud that Doge and Trump discovered, okay, fraud's a crime. So who's been arrested? There have been, 0 arrests from all of this criminal fraud that who's been arrested? I want to know who are the people who are, who have committed all of these crimes to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars. I mean, I can tell you who the fraudsters have been. I mean, Donald Trump was found criminally liable in a Manhattan court for the crimes he committed with his business. Now, I can tell you that the MAGA Republican senator from Florida was involved in Medicare fraud or Medicaid fraud, and invoked the Fifth Amendment over and over and over again in connection with criminal cases. So what are we even talking about here? Let's go this, though. This is MAGA Mike Johnson once again. And here, MAGA Mike Johnson, again, the talking point that went out from the Trump administration and for all of the MAGAs is just say Zelensky was rude. Just say his body language showed disrespect. Here, play this clip.
That goes along with this. I've never seen anything like President Zelensky's behavior there. He berated and interrupted his host and instead of expressing gratitude for the extraordinary help that the U.S. has provided his country and effectively helped him stay alive and stay in power. So the way that went down was very disappointing. I hope and pray, frankly, that President Zelensky will come to his senses, come back to President Trump, express gratitude as he should, apologize for his behavior there and accept this mineral rights deal, because that is the best way for us to get to a point of peace over there in that region. And it's in the interest of both countries.
And by the way, Americans who watch that will see that and generally view what Donald Trump did as utterly despicable and embarrassing. Here, MAGA Mike Johnson says that if Zelensky doesn't apologize and show the right amount of gratitude to Donald Trump, he says that Zelensky needs to resign. Play this clip.
Speaker, Senator Lindsey Graham on Friday floated the idea that President Zelensky may need to resign in order for there to be a peace agreement. Do you agree with that statement?
Well, something has to change. Either he needs to come to his senses and come back to the table in gratitude, or someone else needs to lead the country to do that. I mean, it's up to the Ukrainians to figure that out. But I can tell you that we are re-exerting peace through strength. President Trump has brought back strength to the White House. We knew that this moment would come. We worked hard for it to come. And now it's here. But we need these parties to go along with this. And we need President Zelensky to do what is necessary. This war has drug on far too long. He's lost hundreds of thousands of people, including women and children. We've got to bring an end to it. And I think our European allies are hoping that is the case, and we are as well.
Okay, so just to put a fine point on that, you are saying that it might be necessary for President Zelensky to step down and not Putin. Do you want to see Putin step down?
I'd like to see Putin defeated, frankly. He is an adversary of the United States. Okay. But in this conflict, we've got to bring an end to this war. It's in everybody's interest.
Again, these spineless Republican cowards. Doesn't this give you insight into their interactions with Donald Trump? I mean, you have this guy. I mean, Donald Trump's there, saying, you don't got the cards. You don't got the card. I mean, this looks like a freaking moron parroting Putin talking points in the Oval Office to a war hero in President Zelensky. And President Zelensky has repeatedly thanked the Trump administration, even though he shouldn't have to. The Trump administration's given him no money. Former President Biden gave lots of money. Europe gave more money than the United States. And Donald Trump just sits there wagging his finger saying, you don't have the cards. President Zelensky still is very thankful and complimentary, even though, frankly, he shouldn't be thankful to Trump. But Zelensky's playing the game. But you're not sufficiently thankful enough. It's just so stupid. It's just so stupid. And the level of obsequiousness of Trump and JD and Waltz and all of these MAGA morons in the White House to Putin is, as an American, humiliating. Here is MAGA Republican Representative Rich McCormick. Here he was asked questions by CNN. This is the guy who was booed at his town hall in Georgia's 7th Congressional District. Play this clip.
Concerns right now. To be a little bit more compassionate in the way we message this. It matters to people, and I want to make sure that we don't come across as insensitive. We care about people. That's why we're making the cuts.
This idea that they were going to just fire people via Twitter, Elon Musk, that to me seems rash. It seems not appropriate.
Doge specifically, but the cuts, do you have any concerns about that?
We're having conversations with our district about that.
Now, last Congressman Juan Ciscomani from Arizona in the swing district. People are hearing about it back home.
While all of this was going on, what was Trump doing? He was at some weird Mar-a-Lago event dancing. Here, play this clip. Again, it is very embarrassing stuff. Here we have Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence. Here she's given an easy opportunity to criticize Putin. But what does she do? She bashes Zelensky because, if you follow this, there's a few things that are happening, right? They're either directly Russian assets, right? That would be a very logical answer because all of their things benefit Russia. They're useful idiots to Russia. Russia has something over them and blackmailing them, or there's something else that I'm not thinking about, but everything they do is to benefit Russia. Russia. Yes, to benefit Russia. That's what we see in the Oval Office. Utter weakness. And Trump and all of these MAGA idiots in the White House bending a knee to Putin. And as an American, it's freaking humiliating. Here, play this clip.
Also, though, think that they're in more alignment, and they should be, with the U.S. when it comes to those freedoms and things you talk about. Certainly, those are not things that you would say that Russia or Putin celebrates or bestows on his own people.
That's correct. I would not make that claim, and it's clear that that's not the case. Nor does President Trump, but that's not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about many of these European countries and Zelensky himself, who claim to be standing and fighting for the cause of freedom and democracy, when we actually look at what's happening in reality in these countries, as well as with Zelensky's government in Ukraine, is the exact opposite. You have the canceling of elections in Ukraine. You have political parties being silenced or even criminalized or thrown in prison. You have the freedom of religion, churches being shut down. You have political opposition being silenced. You have total government control of the media. We could go down a whole laundry list of issues that are against the values of democracy and freedom. So it really begs the question, as Vice President Vance said again in Munich, it's clear that they're standing against Putin. Obviously, that's clear. But what are they actually really fighting for? And are they aligned with the values that they claim to hold in agreement with us, the values that President Trump and Vice President Vance are standing for? And those are the values of freedom, of peace, and true security.
All right. So the way that you describe.
Here is the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, doing the whole, rude this, rude that thing again.
There's no question that Vladimir Zelensky was irritating, perhaps disrespectful, but it also seemed like President Trump lost his temper.
Mm-hmm. I would disagree with that. I think what happened in the Oval Office, I was there, was unfortunately President Zelensky came in with a mindset not wanting to negotiate peace. President Zelensky was also antagonistic, and frankly, he was rude. He picked a fight with the Vice President of the United States. He repeatedly interrupted President Trump. And so what President Trump did was stood strong for America, defended his Vice President, but most importantly, defended the American people who, after 3 years of funding this brutal war, are sick and tired of footing the bill. The president wants peace. It was clear President Zelensky wasn't in the mindset to negotiate that just yet.
And while we watch that, I want to show you these. I think it's important that I show you this. First, let me show you this compilation of Marco Rubio, what he really said about Donald Trump before he bent the knee and is now attacking Zelensky for Ukraine-splaining to Trump what's happening in Ukraine. Play this clip.
No way we are going to allow a con artist to take over the conservative movement, and Donald Trump is a con artist.
Donald Trump is a con artist.
He's a con man. I think it's time to unmask him for what he is. A con man who's taking advantage of people's fears and anxieties about the future, portraying himself as some sort of strong guy. He's not a strong guy.
He doesn't sweat. He doesn't sweat because his pores are clogged from the spray tan that he uses. You all have friends that are thinking about voting for Donald Trump. Friends, do not let friends vote for con artists.
We're about to turn over the conservative movement to a person that has no ideas of any substance on the important issues, the nuclear codes of the United States, to an erratic individual.
So we cannot allow the conservative movement to be taken over by a con artist.
How can the nominee of the Republican Party, of the party of Lincoln, the party of Reagan, the party of hope, and the party of optimism nominate someone who refuses to criticize the Ku Klux Klan or distance himself from an avowed racist like David Duke?
The party of Lincoln and Reagan and the presidency of the United States will never be held by a con artist.
Guys, we have a con artist as the front runner in the Republican Party. A guy who has made a career out of telling people lies.
He's always calling me Little Marco. And I don't think that he's taller than me. He's like 6'2", which is why I don't understand why his hands are the size of someone who's 5'2". Have you seen his hands? They're like this. And you know what they say about men with small hands? You can't trust them. You can't trust them.
When Marco Rubio was a senator, here's how he explained that the U.S. promised to defend Ukraine forever if they got rid of their nuclear arsenal left after the Soviet Union fell. Play this clip.
When the Soviet Union fell in the early 1990s, Ukraine was left with the world's third largest stockpile of tactical nuclear weapons and strategic nuclear weapons on the planet. But they signed this agreement with the United States, the United Kingdom, and Russia that basically said, if you give up your nuclear weapons, we, these three countries that signed to this, will provide for your defense and assure you of your defense. And so Ukraine did that. They gave up these weapons. Well, now, this was signed in 1994, 20 years later, one of the three countries that signed that agreement hasn't just not provided for their defense, they actually invaded them. And I want to make a point on this for a second. Think about if you're one of these other countries around the world right now that feels threatened by your neighbors. And the United States and the rest of the world are going to you and saying, listen, don't develop nuclear weapons. Don't develop nuclear weapons, South Korea. Don't develop nuclear weapons, Japan. Don't develop nuclear weapons, Saudi Arabia. We will protect you. We will watch out for you. What kind of lesson do you think this instance sends to them? I think the message this is sending to many nations around the world is perhaps we can no longer count on the security promises made by the free world. Perhaps we need to start looking out for ourselves. And that's why the Ukrainian situation is so much more important than simply what's happening in Europe. This has implications around the world.
And this is what J.D. Vance had to say about Trump before. Play this clip.
I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him.
It makes you think that at a fundamental level, this is sort of a he said, she said, right? And at the end of the day, do you believe Donald Trump, who always tells the truth? Just kidding. Or do you believe that woman on that tape?
No, I cannot stand Trump because I think he's a fraud. Well, I think he's a total fraud that is exploiting these people, who is a total fraud.
Like you said, I agree with you on Trump because I don't think that he's the person. I don't think he actually cares about folks.
Definitely, there is definitely an element of Donald Trump support that has its basis in racism or xenophobia. I think there's a chance, if I feel like Trump has a really good chance of winning, that I might have to hold my nose and vote for Hillary Clinton. I think that I'm going to vote third party because I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious and is leading the white working class to a very dark place.
So as I watch these spineless Republicans bend the knee to Trump, who's bent the knee to Putin, as an American, I go, what the hell is going on here? And again, I don't care what political party you're from. You should watch this and go, gross. dangerous. What the hell? Am I wrong? Hit subscribe. Let's get to 5 million subscribers. Thanks for watching.
The truth is more important than ever. Check out our new Truth Over Lies collection at store.MeidasTouch.com. All 100% USA union made.